Orly is here to show us how to take our very favorite sweatshirts and personalize them into something we will really love.
Oh, do you see
Not
what you did
just
there?
like we're gonna love them.
You're gonna love it. And I am in love with it. This is one of those projects that was really fun because there was a learning curve as I really learned all the little tips and tricks that make it work perfectly. And then I really nailed it on this one. And I was so excited. Like I've been walking around like, do you see my sweatshirt? So I'm gonna share all the really specific tips that actually make this work really well. So I'm excited. Because this is so great for Valentine's Day, but year round. I would not judge anyone if they walked in in August with this bad boy on.
I wear sweaters with hearts all over them all the time. There's nothing wrong with wearing love on your sleeve or on the front of your shirt. So you got started a little bit earlier. We were all watching you do this. Let's take a look.
So this is how you're going to make the actual love graphic. Now, I'm hand writing it myself, but you could print just the word love in a script font for yourself. Once you do it, put a piece of parchment paper on top of it, and you're going to basically follow the line you gave yourself with your hot glue gun. Obviously, it's difficult to see there because it's clear hot glue on the parchment paper, but once it dries, it peels right off. So now that becomes a paint blocker. It's like the opposite of a stencil.
Right.
And you can see here, I thickened it up, and that was one of the tips that I learned that made a really big difference, is that I went over and made sure that I went much thicker than my first pass, and the thickness of the letters helps prevent any paint from bleeding through. So that was a really great tip. If you just, when you are actually tracing it, if you go slower, you automatically make the letters thicker because more glue is going out, like per tiny centimeter, more glue is going, so the letters automatically become thicker.
And it makes
it
look
slower.
Much nicer, thicker.
Yeah.
Thin, it would just kind of look chintzy.
Yeah, exactly. And it was much harder to control. So thicker letters are definitely the way to go. That's sort of tip number one.
So how did you make the heart stencil then so we can make this beautiful, perfect
Super
heart?
simple. This is another thing that you can either do yourself, where you actually make your own heart, or you can print it on the computer.
Okay.
Once you have your heart at the right size, get a piece of poster board or whatever, and center it and cut it out. So this ends up giving you one big giant stencil.
All right. And you said another tip that you were talking about earlier is to make sure that the heart is 11 inches in width?
At its widest point, you want your heart to be 11 inches. And that's because that is the sweet spot. Like in clothing design, when you're putting a logo on a t-shirt, you never want to go over 11 inches or you start to wrap around the underarm of the body and you lose some of the graphic. 11 inches is that sweet spot that sits right in the center of the body and looks perfectly balanced.
What an interesting tip.
Isn't that cool?
If you're not a clothing designer, no one knows
I learned that when I had my line, Talking West. That's how we centered all our graphics.
Okay, what do we do now?
So now you want to figure out, before you actually put this down, you want to make sure that you're centered, because what's going to happen is once I lay this down, I'm kind of blind, right? I can't see my sweatshirt to know that I'm even. So come up like this, and you see how the point of my heart is in the center of my tag. I know that that's center.
Okay.
So right now, I'm going to slide slowly to right there, and I'm going to give myself a tiny little mark so that I know where that line is supposed to end up. And this is going to get covered with paint, so we're not going to see that dot anyway.
Okay.
Now, come over here and take a little tacky spray, and we're going to spray the backside, making sure to really focus on the edges. And you can see this is the one I use, so you can reuse this and make over and over, keep making t-shirts.
So this tacky spray isn't going to stick forever to the shirt or ruin the fabric.
No, exactly. And that's actually, Debbie, why tacky spray is super important, because it's a temporary adhesive.
Okay, so don't use an adhesive that
is permanent.
Okay.
Temporary. So right now what I'm doing is I'm going back to my dot, right? That little dot that I gave myself as my guide. So now I know that I'm perfectly centered, even though I can't really see.
Would you have to use the same color marker of the paint that you're doing there, or are you going to see it?
No, as long as your paint is dark, it's going to hide it. If you're doing a light color, then yeah, be careful with that. So now we want to center our letters.
And how do you center the letters?
So this is what I did. I just kind of balance it and look at it until it feels nice. But because they're in two separate pieces, lift one at a time. So I'm going to lift up one. I'm not going to do it right now because I'll get it all over my fingers, but I would put a little bit of tacky spray on the back, and I know where to put it because I need to balance it with the OVE that's still here. Now I know exactly where to put it next to my OVE. Now that my L is in place, I pick up my OVE. I spray paint the back of it. I know exactly where to put it back down because my L is in place.
And that literally does not compromise the feeling of the fabric at all. I can't believe it.
It's really, really cool.
The tacky spray does not, you can't feel it.
No, it just disappears. It's really wild, actually. So now you would spray paint.
Now, how do you keep it from leaking through the back of your sweatshirt so you don't have a heart on the back of you, too?
Okay, which could be cute. But yeah, yeah, exactly. There's two tips here. One is put something in between the front and back layer of your sweatshirt. So just open your sweatshirt up, put in a piece of poster board, paper bag.
That's a great idea.
Like this. I've got it right here. You can see. There's just a little piece in there.
There you go.
And it's blocking, making sure no paint blocks through.
Okay.
But the real key that I learned that makes sure that this is going to come out perfect is multiple light coats of paint.
Did you learn this from experience?
Sure did. Ruined a couple of sweatshirts, Deb. Because what I was doing at first is I was spraying it until it was solid black. But what was happening is the sweatshirt was getting wet, so it was seeping through and bleeding because my stencil can't block the fibers from being soaking wet.
Even with it stuck down.
It prevents it from the top. It can't prevent it from the inside.
Well, it could be a bleeding heart.
Yeah, and this is actually a good example of what happened.
Worked.
So this is one of my first ones, and you can see what I learned. Not only are the letters thinner, but you can see the bleeding because I did multiples and it seeped through.
Oh, wow.
So this is a good example of one of the reasons
you're
why.
Not kidding. That really did.
Right?
Okay.
So the thicker letters and the lighter coats really make a huge difference. So now I'm going to move this off to the side.
Okay.
You would spray paint a couple of coats until it feels nice and solid.
Okay.
And then this is what we have. And can I tell you, we haven't pre-tested this.
Uh-oh. So now we're going to do the reveal
It's
live.
real. Okay.
Now, what about this, though? Could you tuck that in? So
So you just want to put like a piece of fabric over any exposed parts of your sweatshirt. So now let's
go. Let's do it. Yeah. Oh, it didn't bleed. That's beautiful.
Okay.
Good job.
And first of all, how cool would even that look with the 3D, like black on black?
I think I would do that permanent.
I know, right? It's kind of a bummer to take it off. But now,
let's see.
You just
careful.
I know.
And then when we wash
Look at
this,
that! No, this is fabric paint. We use fabric spray paint. This sucker can go in the wash over and over again. Gosh, and I mean, I got to tell you, with the first ones I did, like this really, like
That's
all
awesome.
of the tiny tips and tricks made a huge difference. And now it's like you can crank them out.
How great would this be to customize for like bridal presents or birthdays?
I mean, on the back of like a robe, you could do these on the back of a robe for bridal party pictures, or girlfriend sweatshirts.
Oh my gosh,
best friend sweatshirts.
We have friendship sweatshirts.
Friendship sweatshirts.
I love you.
I love you.
We love you too. You all make sure to visit hallmarkchannel.com for full instructions. And look at that one. I love that one too.
Yeah, with the pop of color, so you can do that.
Later on Home and Family, Retail Me Not Sarah Skirball is sharing how to find the best Valentine deals without breaking the bank. And next, from tears to cheers, UCLA gymnast Caitlin Ohashi opens up about her perfect 10 routine.